You're usually right there. And now, you're more like that. Well, sometimes you come here, and it's like I can't describe it at all. We have a couple more. And then part of that this morning. Good, how are you? Good. Hi, Eric. Good morning. How are you? Doing well. How are you? I'm doing awesome. We had friends. I've been away now. You're a surgery, so can you pass that on to attending?
Good morning, everyone. We'll get started. It's about 6 minutes past our starting time, so we're delighted to see so many faces on an August morning when I thought you all would be on vacation. So this is great. I'm Mindy Tuller, and I manage the Medical Portal website. And I also facilitate this group, the Utah Children's Care Coordination Network. Again, we're really happy to see you. I think are some new faces and then a lot of regulars. Thanks again for coming. As many of you know, we're pretty informal around here. Let's see if I can move this. So please get up. There we go. Grab something to eat at any time. Bathrooms are, I think you can go straight to your conference area for the women's room. Just to the right, you go to the larger room there, and then I think the men's, Gina, the men's room, right here, so real close. Okay, great. And so yeah, by all means, move around, do what you need to. If you want to maybe grab a chair and sit over here, that would work as well. And we've got a few more chairs, so make yourself comfortable. Great. Okay. So our agenda today, let's go around and start with introductions, as we usually do. Gabby, do we have anyone on the phone?
No, nobody. Yes.
Okay. So we'll just focus on who's in the room. And Eric, do you mind if I ask you to start?
Good morning, Eric Christensen with the Utah Department of Health, Bureau of Children with Special Health Care Needs. I manage our integrated services program.
Gabby.
I'm Gabby Bauer-Doshi. I'm a quality improvement specialist at UPIC. I'm Danette Pritchard. I'm with James Mason Centers for Recovery, a day treatment and intensive outpatient program for teenagers 12 to 17.
I'm Teresa McBride, James Mason Centers for Recovery, President and CEO.
Rachel Gomber with Henderson.
Gary Tobler, the Pediatric Care Council.
Hello, Care Coordinator at Willow Creek. Daughter's Care Coordinator at Utah Valley Pediatrics. Linda Weinberg, UCSF. Carolyn Howe, Children's Special Health Care Needs, the Integrated Services.
Bob Torres with the Integrated Services Program, Maryland.
And Doug Bentley, and I'm one of the quality improvement specialists at UCCCN with Gabby. We've had a Carlson and a Care Coordinator for the Integrated Services Program. All of that. And I'm Sonia Estrada with the Integrated Services Program, and Heather and I are in the office. Kristen?
Oh, good morning, Kelly from Care Network.
And Kelly Jensen, Nurse Care Manager.
Jen Boker, and Nurse Care Manager.
Kim Thomas. I'm a care coordinator with Untitled Chapter.
And Ron Fox, that's the
I'm Paul Kingsbury, and I'm the Autism System Support Coordinator for the Children with Special Health Care Needs and Integrated Services.
I'm Abigail with University.
Lou Allen with Able Differently, it's a nonprofit for special needs kids. And also I'm here representing the chapter, American Academy of Peace, with a work on working on mental health integration.
National coordinator at Taylor Robinson, medical coordinator at Southwood.
Bonnie Fluid, medical director of Children's Special Health Care. Annie Haynes is with Resource Development Medical Health Portal. I'm Dusty Household, and I'm care coordinator at Montana.
Kimberly Van Rice from the University Developmental Center. Great. And Ola Liddy. Everyone knows Gina.
Ilse the Clear Lara from Help Me Grow Utah.
Great. And who else is there? Becca?
I'm a care coordinator at University PX.
And Noemi? I'm the care coordinator at UCCCN. Great. Okay. Terrific. We got everybody. Excellent. All right. So this is the part of our meeting where we always talk about how we can help one another and also kind of toot our own horns a little bit if we have something to brag about that's going well. So I'll hope that some of you guys might have something to, actually, that's a good slide. Let me do this first. So as you guys recall, if you were here at the last meeting and saw the emails, we talked about the medical home portal feature to put together a list of local service providers. And so we kind of gave you a little assignment to create a list or two and then try and do something with it. Don't just leave it there, but share it or print it or modify it or do something to try and kind of see what the capabilities of that are. And so I've been able to see that some of you have put together some lists and see that you've logged on, but I can't tell a little bit more than that, and I haven't had anyone give me any feedback. So is there anyone who is willing to mention how that experience went for them? And criticism is fine, that's fine. Yeah.
So Walt and I went to St. George with our 7-day St. George classes. Worked very well, got some good feedback from the parents on the components of the list. The only little bit of feedback is when I printed it, it's hard to read when you print it. The colors kind of disappear, so it looks like the title of the one below is actually where the numbering information is for above.
That's helpful.
So I just actually took a snap of the web page and printed that.
Okay. And did you print it just like using the browser's print, or did you save it to PDF?
The browser.
Okay. 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 No, that's super helpful. Great. We can work on that. Anyone else? Yeah.
I went to the autism vaccination of the guys condition, and I had a family who didn't have internet, and so I was going to print it and mail it to them.
Okay.
And it didn't really print in a format that could be readable for that.
And so that was just from the diagnosis module. It wasn't a list per se.
No, it was just a little off.
Great.
So we were talking about printing from the medical portal.
Okay. And again, that was something that you just tried to print using the browser print. Okay. Okay. So we'll follow up on that. Okay, great. Good feedback. So I still am hoping to hear from you guys about the lists. We really value your experiences because we feel like, we hope anyway, that these lists would be valuable tools in care coordinators' hands. So if we can learn from your experiences, we want to improve those and make them tools that are useful to you. So again, I'll just put out a plea to give that a try. And if you have questions, you can just give me a call. I can walk you through it, and I'm happy to.
Okay, so I created a list of my care with someone else. It wasn't my personal account, but I was drawn by the 2 levels. I'm trying to do it with sharing it with someone who doesn't. You can share it with someone that doesn't, and they still access it.
Yes, they can. And so it looks a little different. They don't have all the features, so they can't rename it. They can't, they can't modify it in any way. It's just what you sent them. That's what they're able to see. But yes, they certainly can. Yeah. So we don't want to limit someone if they don't want to have an account in not being able to see a list or access to it. They just can't do as much.
I created a couple lists, but I didn't share them, unfortunately, sorry. But I noticed when I was looking under the residential treatment portal, there's adult facilities that are mixed with adolescents, so I kind of created adult versus adolescent.
Okay.
I don't know whether it would be helpful for anyone to know also what are Medicaid providers or state-coordinated programs, and differentiate those from private providers. There's a difference between, you know, and so that's what I was kind of going for is, and then acute, if there's an emergency, that there's only, you know, the 4 hospitals that are local that have those acute centers. So that's kind of the direction I'm.
Yeah, and so we're excited that Danette is willing to help us work on some of our mental health providers in our database, and so we're going to be following up with her now that things are calming down a little bit with schedule. I hope to get to work with you and see if we can improve some of the way our mental and behavioral health providers play, so people can search and find what they're looking for. So we really appreciate that. Okay, we have a busy meeting today, so I don't want to take too much more time on that. But just know that if you have any questions or thoughts about the list, we'd really like to hear that. And we're happy to help in any way that we can. So as I mentioned, this part of the meeting is really to talk about how we can help you, and also to identify new resources that maybe some of us don't know about. So we use the Medical Home Portal in this part of the meeting to make sure that we either can show you a resource that's in there, or to identify one that isn't in there and make sure it gets in. So does anyone have any cases that they're working on right now that are difficult? Jen?
I got a call, one of our patients, so he just turned 18, he had a diagnosis of autism, hearing loss, some ADHD, anxiety issues, kind of just a brief, like, social history. So we saw him until 2013 when his family was in Missouri, and then he popped back up this fall in October, came in with his grandmother, moved away from his mom and stepdad. There were claims of like abuse and some like domestic violence, sexual violence happening in the home, so he came to live with his grandmother. She doesn't have like legal custody of him. She has like a written note from mom saying like, take him, I'm tired of his life, type of thing. So he is home functioning. However, he doesn't have a good handle on like medical treatment for himself. We lost touch. So we tried to get grandma on like to do PSP and things like that, and then they moved. So they moved out of our area. He popped back up 2 weeks ago because he ran away from home. And grandma basically was like, you're not keeping a job, like I can't keep you. So now he's living with a neighbor. The neighbor called me. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So he's 18. So in the meantime, he's turned 18. So she's trying to get things. I couldn't disclose very much to her because she doesn't have guardianship. So I gave her like guardianship to the state of Utah. Like I called the DSPD to see if he's on, the grandma never finished the application. I don't really know like where else to go because I can't disclose a lot to this woman who's taken care of him now, or she's taken like, and he isn't like able to care for himself in a way that's like going to benefit him. I don't really know what else to do to help him.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
I know. I know. So there's a place called Matt's Place that specializes with autism. They treat us from ages 6 to 22.
Okay.
And high functioning, they work with a number, and I'm pretty sure they work with maybe out of network single case agreements.
Okay.
As far as insurance, they are in Centerville. really, really reputable, anybody that was kind of on the spectrum. It is a day treatment, it's not residential, but they might be able to get some support. And their number is...
With him being 18 now, would he have to call and do all of that himself? And I think that's like the obstacle that we're running into.
He might, well, obviously with the day treatment program, they have to be dialed in. I mean, they have to be motivated for treatment. So that might be a good discussion to have with the parents as far as boundaries. And, you know, he doesn't want to be homeless either. So,
Right.
you know, they can help him or help the family decide what would be the best mode of getting him there. Because they go all the way up to 22, that would be probably one of the best because they're super good with autism. If it was under 18, I'd say Heritage has a really good autism program that's residential treatment. Over in, there's some adult facilities like the Phoenix Recovery is now working with both mental health as well as substance abuse. I'm not sure that their specialty would be on the autism, but they they're in Draper and they're 18 and older.
So how do I get around the guardianship issue?
When they're 18.
So I have a question for you. So whoever he's currently living with, if they relationship together with the patient, that if he's going to continue to live there, that we have to do certain things, we have alcohol, people or whatever, and then once determined how much he can take on responsibility for himself, if he agrees with that, he can go through a program or go through the bill, then that can be determined. Otherwise, oftentimes what ends up happening is, and I've seen it with some family members, they will get in trouble with the law, and then, and that's not about what I think he wants. Well, that he would want, but or that it would benefit him, and if this family that's caring for him now and how we can help herself now, if there's actually this well-being. The other thing with guardianship is you have to talk about guardianship. So you will always take it. You can decide these are certain areas that I would want my people to be guardianship over because I realize I can't handle medical decisions. So they do need to go to the guardianship and make a plan. Okay. Do they walk them through how to do that? Yeah. With the parent center, okay, they have to wait. I went to their training, and I went to the first one, and I didn't go to the second one. The second one is where the family actually gets everything on this and the paperwork, and they can do it themselves. So there wouldn't be a lot of conflict with family. And then you have to have a legal advocate, which you can do through the company there, which isn't a lot. So, because the person has to be represented, right? But the family doesn't have to pay a lot. They fill out the paperwork. It's a lot of work, but they need to choose where he needs the guardianship. Okay. And then the other thing to consider is PPMSI, because at 18, your income is based on your own personal income, not on your income. So at least that would be some financial, but still, there's that process of application that someone can come in. And I don't know that it has to be, because he was on the brain, right? The person who doesn't need somebody starting. Maybe this is a bad question to ask, but so like his parents who are in Missouri, they can't come to Utah and force him to go back with them. Correct. Now that he's 18, so he's like, I know he has legal rights, like because he's 18, but they can't petition him to come back with them. Don't do so. I'm not an attorney, but I have a daughter today. Okay. In order for me to do anything with her, I have to have guardianship. Okay. So they would have to petition. So I know that was like a
And they can't just automatically do it, right?
Right, they have a whole legal process,
And he has to represent them.
Okay. Thank you.
Well,
Now, the parent center, it was with Guardianship Associates, and they had a grant to do the pro se training. Some of the school districts that we have contracts with, the schedule will be coming out. There are some coming up for the pro se, so that the families don't have a lot of expense on their side, if that's the way they go. The other thing that happened in the legislature just this last year was that an individual under a certain age, so 18 definitely, the fee for the legal fees on schedule is $35. But with what you were talking about, the courts are really going to look at how much he can, so nobody can come in and say, I am your legal guardian. What may help him is if he's got a good relationship with grandma, is let him know that there are limited pieces that he could have help with, and some of those may be the medical pieces, and it's all that about how you message it to him to make sure that he knows that you've still got control, that somebody else is not going to make decisions on his behalf unless he's harmful to himself or harmful to others. So there's some of those pieces. The list should be coming out soon, but I will make sure that anything that's in Canyon's coming up or the surrounding area gets that.
There's somebody from DCSS here. So maybe you would be the person to talk more about this, but I haven't necessarily had great success with protective services helping with in a supportive volunteer situation. But when you look at his vulnerability, the need for his protection, it may be worthwhile looking into in this transition as he goes start to go, that he would have support toward that. And there are housing, there have been housing opportunities, but job opportunities, vocational training, which makes me think of transition services also. That the school district does have some responsibility to help with this, but I think as people have already suggested, that getting guardianship, getting somebody that can walk with him and stand with him, I think is really important. And I do personally feel that approaching DCFS many times is not just a generic policy, but in fact may relate to an individual at DCFS that would take some interest in this and support some of the transition.
So because he's 18, we have no choice over him. But there is the Office of the Public Guardian that can help in those cases. That's in DHS. Very small office, and they will step in with something. I personally have gone through the guardianship process, and it's very easy. It's all online. It's not terribly expensive. And then there's DSPD, and just because you don't qualify for DSPD services doesn't mean that they don't have a whole list of services outside of their official services that someone can access. And that's a really bad place to go. Well, you see, I bet I graduate from school, maybe. I'm not sure. Because the people that are working, some of them go to maybe 22. And so still may qualify for some of that vocational training and services for those who are not in the school system where he lives.
It really depends on the other underlying disability that has intellectual disability. So, as Marilyn said, that if he's already got a certificate or that, then he's not eligible.
Okay. So Jenna, I don't know how very disabilities and smart learning, but Job Corps has an amazing program where they'll help them get their GED, and then they can live there, they support them completely, and then they can also do vocational training on, pretty much any location that they want. And they can go to different, they'll fly them to different states if they want to do something that isn't offered in the state, they'll fly them. So depending on where he's at on that, they can help them more.
Okay, that was juicy. I am so sorry to cut you off. We are running out of time. That was, wow, okay. So we'll work on putting together all of those things. Office of the Public Guardian I didn't pull up, and DSPD I didn't pull up, but hopefully Kay was taking notes. And we've got all these tabs of this. So we'll put this together and send out with our notes.
Math placement on there as well.
Math placement on there as well. Yeah, pretty good. So that's tough. I hope it works out for him. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we have someone else to go, and so I'm going to ask Kristen Warnick and Linda Weininger to come on up, and we'll move to our next part of our meeting quickly. Should I go ahead and play the trailer? Yeah. Okay. And Gina, I wonder if maybe turning off some lights might help with this one?
So let me just introduce this quickly. This is a trailer for a movie that was a documentary done by Jamie Redford on resilience with the connection to trauma. This is the trailer.
Just a couple minutes long.
Yeah.
Make sure we have sound. It's up there too. Change that. Pause that. Oh, that sounds like it's going to be loud.
So
On the bottom
here, here.
Oh, here.
Here.
Okay. Got it. I'm a math student. Me too. Yeah, it is going to be loud. All right, let's try this again. That's good.
I plug it in again. Mine will do a speaker. Oh, it's on headphones.
Mine out, yeah. For heaven's sake.
And you say, okay, I'm going to go get these. Okay, let's see those. Oh. Do you want to talk for just a second while we figure this out? Yeah. Okay.
And I have a training down in Utah County at 10, so I'll go really quick if that's okay. So I'm Kristen Warnick, and I'm the founder of the Trauma Informed Care Network. And we started about 2.5 years ago, kind of seeing I'm a therapist, and we have a trauma-based group of practitioners, and you see the amount of trauma in the community, and I thought, oh my gosh, we need help, we need to network together. So we started this network as a way to educate the community on trauma. A lot of times when we educate the community on trauma, it can be kind of a depressing message because there is a lot of trauma out there. But the good news is that we have some amazing ways to address trauma, some amazing modalities, a lot of very skilled practitioners in our community. And that is kind of the message that we want to get across so that people can understand trauma, understand the impact, and then understand that there are people out there that can help ameliorate those trauma. So we have a website, and they're occupied with the computer, but it's www.ticn.org, and we have a growing list of providers that are trauma-informed or trauma-trained. We have monthly meetings on trauma-related topics that anyone from the community is invited to. It tends to be some of them tend to be focused towards therapists, but I think that's useful information for people who are working with people with these issues to understand the modalities and the techniques that we use to address. But we try and mix it up and have topics that are appropriate to different stakeholders. And that's really our goal. We're predominantly therapists, but we have lots of other people involved in our meetings, on our email list. You can go to our website and sign up to join our email list. We have a monthly newsletter that comes out with trauma-related information. And what else do we do? We just kind of work on various projects. We work with Trauma Resiliency Coalition that Linda's going to talk about to just kind of move forward trauma initiatives in the community. Right now we're on a little project, and if anyone has any information on this, please contact me to help support the refugees in the community with the trauma that they have. So we're kind of reaching out and seeing what's being done already and trying to see if we can use our group to provide some low-cost or pro bono services.
And the Emergency Center is Laura Bennett Murphy.
I've heard her name before. Where is she?
She's a clinical child psychologist and has worked with refugees. That's one of her main interests. And she does some research on them, but also clinically works with them. But she now is at Primary Children's Medical Center working there, so she's really busy with that. But she would be a great person.
Maybe I did get an email from her. I put out, kind of the question like, hey, who's doing what?
Yeah,
that sounds familiar. I think I've got some info from her.
I think Brent Pace, he's also, so he's working only with refugees. So, so that's a very good organization too.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? Or?
I guess we got the big two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of put out, we have some great listservs in the community for therapists. So our listserv has about 350 people on it. And with the Women in Private Practice and the Associated Women in Private Practice, that's how, I gathered some of these names that we can kind of reach out and get information from people.
As far as residential, Westridge Academy actually took a kiddo from uni that was a refugee, and they were able to scholarship him because they're nonprofit. So Charlie Falatea from Westridge would be a good contact. I can email you.
Yeah, and we've got this on, it's being recorded.
Oh,
so
perfect.
We'll get
great. Okay, that's wonderful. Go ahead. So our list of providers are just various people throughout the community. When you go to our website, if you go on the provider tab, it is broken down by insurance. And I have this is our provider list, and I have a volunteer web guy who does all this work for me, so sometimes there's glitches. And I can't remember if we have Medicaid and Medicare on there. It looks like we have Molina, but that could be Medicare is right down there. So you can click on some of those and find people. So, and we've only been in existence for 2.5 years, so we're always growing and adding new people to our network. But we hope this can be a helpful resource to find trauma-trained therapists in the community. Make sure you talked about your list and how you're growing.
Yeah, we'll segue into that after we do the trailer. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Any more questions on PICN? Great to meet you. This looks like a great deal. So thank you. Great. Thank you.
Drive safe.
Thanks.
Are you going to do the trailer? Yeah, I'll do the trailer. Okay, let's see if we can start it from the beginning. And this is just a couple minutes long.
We all like to think of childhood as this time of joy and innocence. But, I mean, for many of us, it's just not true.
When you grow up in these type of situations, it's not something you talk about. I know I did.
The first thing that we found is that at-his childhood experiences are common.
Kids are young, they don't know what's going on, they won't remember anyway. Well, the child may not remember, but the body remembers.
was just incredible. Gee whiz effect. You mean adverse childhood experiences cause heart disease and lung disease and liver and cancer?
Exposure to trauma affects children's developing brains. The impact is on your behavior, it's on your heart, it's on your DNA. Like, how do you deal with all that?
We have a whole new body of knowledge now that could open up what we have up till now been seen as intractable and solvable problems.
No child should be touched or hit.
If you can get the science into the hands of the general population, they will invent very wise actions. Do you feel like any of the interventions have been making a difference?
They made all the differences.
There, it's possible. And a defeatist attitude is completely disconnected from what 21st century science is telling us. And we should be going after that like a bear.
So I think we're almost at the end of our time, right?
No, you're okay.
So let me just give you a little bit of explanation of what we've been doing and how it connects to the medical home portal. DCFS has involvement with 2 different grants that are federally funded. One of them has to do with a program that we call Homework, and that's working to keep children in their home if we can at all keep them safe. It's a very intense way of doing our work where we're meeting with the family sometimes 2 times a week instead of once a month, which was the norm or the requirement in the past. Our Homeworks program is our in-home program. There are not special cases who get to be in Homework. It's any child that we can safely keep in the home. Part of that grant is that it's a 4E waiver grant, and part of that grant requires us to do some work with trauma. And one of my assignments or responsibilities is to work with that piece of that grant and help DCFS to become a trauma-informed organization, which is a very heavy, weighty thing to do for an organization that works so much with trauma and can actually be a trauma agent when we knock on somebody's door. Just by virtue of us knocking on their door, we can trigger trauma, we can create trauma. So, and our own employees experience traumatic events in the telling of abuse, in witnessing things, and in just working with families. So it's something that we very much need. It's a big responsibility, though, for us to do that. Right now, we're working on changing our policy so that it's trauma-informed. One of the other things that we needed was trauma-specific treatment providers. And as I started working with that assignment, I started reaching out to different groups and different people who had information in the community and got connected with the Trauma Resilience Collaborative that Kristen mentioned. I met Kristen there. I met Dr. Susie Wyatt, who some of you may know, who's a mover and shaker in the trauma area for Utah. She's a child psychiatrist and an addictionologist. She has formed this group, and it grows and grows. We have representatives from the State Office of Education, from Workforce Services. We have a number of pediatricians who are involved, Primary Children's Hospital, University of Utah. The list goes on, and it grows all the time. That group meets on an every other month basis, and we work on what's going on with trauma in Utah. They also have a website they're working on. We're connected to the Domestic Violence Coalition and feed off of their website. I also met Mindy and learned about the medical home portal, and so my goal was to make it so that my caseworkers can find trauma-specific treatment. And those are the people that Kristen works with, but we needed to have a way of looking that information up. And Mindy was in the process of expanding the medical home portal to include behavioral health providers. And we wanted to have the information so that we knew what the different types of trauma-specific treatment were and which providers offered those, and if they were certified or if they were trained and in the process of being certified. So that has been very helpful for us. And Kristen and Mindy and I have collaborated quite a bit on that behavioral health portion. There are some specific things that we needed that Mindy was very gracious and was able to provide with some assistance from Kristen and myself. So there's a lot going on with trauma in Utah. There are a lot of groups that seem to come together and are working with it. The children that you work with, many of them have had traumatic events in their lives, and the help that they get, the help that they need, needs to be focused on that. We know now that children who are diagnosed with ADHD, the same things that you use to diagnose ADHD can also be a result of trauma and not ADHD at all. So there are things like that that people need to be aware of, because the treatment, if you have a child that's on ADHD medication and it's not doing anything, then you need to look and see if there's trauma in that child's history, because it will manifest itself in very similar ways. So there's a lot of information out there. This movie is an excellent, excellent movie. It was shown at Sundance this last year and picked up by a company, and now will be available for us to screen. It's had a couple of screenings here in Utah just because Jamie loved Utah, the Redford. So, but it's an excellent, excellent movie. And if you're interested in some of the information, that trailer is available online. There's also bonus content from the movie that's a little longer that gives a little bit more kind of direct information. And then you can look for screenings, and those will be happening around the state as we're able to do that. There are also TED Talks. One of the women who was shown in that is Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, and she does an excellent TED Talk on trauma. And you can find that online as well. Nadine Burke-Harris. She's a pediatrician in Oakland, California.
Great. I think so. That's wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, I'll just mention that what we're working on the portal is we've put together this page that helps explain the available trauma treatment models that are out there that have been rated with scientific evidence and also by their relevance for certain groups. And so we've put kind of the top ones on this particular page. Our goal is in the next short while to reach out to all of the mental and behavioral health providers that are on our in our directory and ask them the specific questions about, have you been trained in trauma, where are you at, and then we'll include that information here as well. So that's coming in the next little while. And so it's not there quite yet, but this page would be available if you feel like you have a child and family for whom trauma has played a part and you're seeing that in their behavior, that you could come here, see some of these treatment models, and then ask when you're speaking to the potential therapist, do you use EMDR? Are you trained in EMDR? Are you trained in any trauma therapy? And then you can come back and learn a little bit more about here.
So my specific interest is in infant and early childhood mental health, and Help Me Grow. That's one main thing we do is try to prevent bigger problems from happening. And of course, UCCCN is also working a lot with younger children. I was just wondering, when you're making the system, if you're also looking at which ages are served, and if there are any, I know there are a few who are specializing in that very early period, but is that a variable that you guys are looking at?
Yes, we ask that. Yeah. Oh, and unfortunately, as you mentioned, there's probably not going to be too many to pop up there, but we have the opportunity for them to always indicate more information if they are highly trained and specialized. Say, I do, just the very young. That, yes, they can very definitely help that.
Therapy.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That's great.
All right. Very good. Okay, so Gina is going to talk to us for just a couple of minutes, because we never want to forget, as we talk about any topic, the mental and behavioral health topic, we don't want to forget the family perspective, because they are the folks who we are trying to help, and if we forget what's going on with them, then we're not doing our job. You want to switch? No. Okay. No, I don't have anything to show. So I'm kind of the default. We're hoping that allies of family and NAMI can be here today, but and the family resource facilitators. But they wanted their vacation before school started, so you get me today. Mental health, the piece, I think where I'm coming from is we have the trauma piece, and that can be from various different levels and experiences and such. But mental health, I think what's been so hard for us as parents that experience it, as well as from our family-to-family perspective through the Utah Parent Center and through Family Voices, is every story that comes in is so different. But the common themes have been that they don't want to seek out one more provider because of the stigma. And one mom called, and she has 2 children, one that has cystic fibrosis and also uses a wheelchair, and she also has another son that is has been diagnosed with some mental health pieces in his life, some of it when there was an Asperger's diagnosis. But she said what was funny when she would go to the providers was they never, when she took her oldest in that had cystic fibrosis, they never looked at it as it was mom's fault or what's going on in the family. But as soon as her younger child went in, it was all about what are you doing wrong. That's how she took it, and that's why I said it's the parent's perspective. And a lot of it is in the messaging. We see that, and we hear with whatever environment we're in the medical system, in the educational system, we always hear the snarky comments about, oh, that mom would just have more structure at home. We wouldn't have these problems at school. And so one other experience from a mom was talking about the early childhood piece was at 18 months old, her son was starting to exhibit these behaviors that were, she thought, well, okay, it's just a terrible too. And then she'd take him to the pediatrician, and it would be like, that's okay. He's just experiencing some, for lack of better words, trauma, because dad is also in the military, and so he's leaving quite frequently, and he's just not getting acclimated to the new environments, whether it's because dad's left or they've had to move to another city. And so she kept doing that, and she thought, no, something's just not right. And at 2, she had called the early intervention system in her state. They come out and evaluate it because they thought, oh, autism, definitely the behavioral meltdowns and such, and tested and said, no, he's not on the spectrum. Just gave her a sheet, some tips of how to structure, bedtime, how he got up, keep to a routine. It'll fix everything. And she literally was crying out for help. She called every agency there was, and everybody just kept saying, he's just a toddler. They had moved to the West Coast, and she finally said, I can't go through the medical care system because it's all in my head. And she had actually finally found a great child psychiatrist, and was not on their insurance panel, but she said, I've got to give it a try. And this psychiatrist was the first one that just sat down and listened to everything and started, in somewhat, the motivational interviewing to get mom, to talk and get some things out. And as she had seen everything that mom had done and tried from all of the professionals, she said, she says he's way too young, and he was about 3.5 by this point, she said, and nobody else will tell you this. She says that at some point in his life he will be diagnosed with bipolar. And they said they won't generally tell you that because it's too young to diagnose, but she immediately, because she didn't want to start on medications, because that was the first thing, well, if the structure's not working, let's try to medicate. And she baby. Well, at 3, she had, when he was 3, she had had another baby and started seeing that he was exhibiting behaviors that was very harmful to the younger brother. And so she thought, okay, I've got to try some medication, because in her eyes, all she could see was at some point in her husband's duty, he would take their youngest son and go live someplace else, and she would go live in an apartment someplace to keep him safe for himself, but keep others safe from being around him. And that's what she thought her life was going to. And when her husband said, absolutely not, we're in this together, we'll figure it out, she actually has said at one point, and this has been a few years ago, it's when the mom had drove her children off the bridge. And she said, I get why that mom did it. She said she was not trying to hurt her children. She knew that there was no help in her eyes. And so that was the easiest way, was to all go together. And it was like, when she told the psychiatrist that, and through this motivational interviewing type process, the way that the psychiatrist approached it was, this is just a tool. This does not mean, that this is lifelong. Let's see what happens. He's 8 now and is in the top of his class. He's very well managed, but with medication. And they have said, you were not, this child unfortunately has some neurobiological issues that it's the brain chemistry. It's nothing you did as a parent. It's not because you weren't as structured. But the way that she felt, it was, the system looked at her like, you're the mom, you fix it. And if it's not going well, you need to change. And she got everything. And again, this is parents' perspective. May not have been exactly what was said, but this is what she heard. She tried to use a pediatrician in one of the towns, and he got underneath the exam chair and was kind of hissing and growling. And I know that he was probably trying to lighten the situation, but he just kind of said to her, have you ever thought about a rabies shot? And she took him, and that was the last time that she trusted. She says that was just a personality. She said, looking back now that life is stable, he probably was trying to make a joke, a very bad one. But and so now she says, looking back, I feel bad for anything that is trying to find that right fit, because the judgments and the stigma of mental health will always be there, because it is such a spectrum. There's you have the substance abuse side of it, and you have the neurobiological side and such. And so I am excited at one point for NAMI and allies to come in and talk about some of the resources they have, some of the projects and initiatives they have throughout the state, because it is a piece that peer-to-peer and talking to others that go through it, and actually knowing, from a professional and from a parent side, those good places to refer to, because I know that I'm going to pick on Summit. You guys know it, and you're helping the families, but you also know the ones that you definitely will not guide your family to. And it's not that they are probably not better in some other aspect, but for our kids and for our families, because this is the ultimate family-centered care, because if we can't help the family deal with the child and help the child, then the child's not going to succeed. And in our case, I just have to say with our children, the trauma that they can experience is not always abuse. And most of you know most of my story, that when having 2 children and a husband passed away, the other kids tend to absorb all of that. They go through it, and it comes out later into their adulthood and really makes an impact of how they function as adults. I had never thought about what happened to the other kids, and yes, my kids we thought that we were protecting them from as much of the emotional stuff as possible, and trying not to make them miss out on anything else, because we had children with very significant special health care needs in our family. And in talking to my pediatrician that has since retired quite a while ago, I asked him, I said, were we just that, dysfunctional family that I just missed out on all of the things that my other kids were going through? And he said, maybe. He said, but if I ever see a functional family walk into any practice, I'll let you know, because we all are dysfunctional. And so that, maybe he was just saying that to just make me feel better, but I really found that yes, we're all in we're doing the best we can with whatever we have and the tools and the resources. And just to tell you again from a parent's perspective, I did have my oldest son now, because he started to experience some of the PTSD, sending to a counselor and such. And he came back, and because he was over 18, I couldn't be the mommy that listened in. He said, well, Mom, I found out that I have never bonded with you, and that perhaps I was not going there to get over what had happened with my girlfriend. I should come out of the closet. And, we just kind of sat there because in our family, it's not a secret. We have uncles and we have cousins that are, LGBT. So it wasn't like, I didn't think, am I hiding something? And we took him to somebody else immediately, thank goodness, because he started thinking, maybe I do have those issues. And the other counselor said, no, it must have been somebody fresh out of school. And because usually you try to get the whole history before you tell a child that he is not bonded with his mom. And I said, you probably should talk to his football coach, because I was the one, and he finally kicked me out of some of the practices. He said, do you want me to put bubble wrap around him at this point? It's like, yeah. So I would say I bonded with him, okay. But I just wanted to give kind of that perspective that it doesn't matter, whether our children have the neurobiological, whether our children have substance abuse, which, of course, all of the research and such says that many of those kids are self-medicating because there is an underlying mental health piece that they're dealing with, and that the trauma-informed, that can mean a lot of things, of course, including abuse, and I realize why we have to screen, but hopefully that, you can work with colleagues and make it so that it doesn't feel so judgmental and such a stigma on the family, because even if that's not what you said, that's what we heard. So faith, and we'll get the true experts in soon. Right. Yeah. Next month we have Valley Behavioral set to come, and Gina, do we have allies anonymous? I did not give them the date yet because we didn't know if there was room in this. Yes. But they are more than happy. Okay, very good. So that's the plan. So September will be another mental behavioral health focused meeting, and we're excited about it. And so we're actually hoping to listen carefully to what we hear in this next part and provide it to those who will come and talk with us next time to see if we have challenges and barriers that they might be able to specifically address. So that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about or listening for here. So I hate to put my panel on the spot, but this is not intended to put you on the spot, but rather to allow the kind of the eye contact and the back and forth to happen a little bit better. So if you agree to talk this morning as part of the panel, would you mind coming on up? And that would be great.
Could you maybe unplug the sound again? I think it's still buzzing. Okay, thank you.
I know that's better. Thank you. Good.
It was focusing on
Awesome. Hey, so Jan, Mindy, Dan, and Jenna, thank you very much. So I asked these guys a few questions after they agreed to be part of the panel to sort of help them be better prepared for all of this. And so these questions are above their heads there. And so this is, I think, our goal, and I think we have folks who have a different perspective on each one of these questions based on where their practice is currently, and perhaps the system within the system that their practice falls within. So we're really looking forward to hearing kind of the different points for each. Jan, do you mind starting just telling us a little bit? Just tell me what tell this group a little bit of what you mentioned in your email response to that.
I work at Intermountain Memorial Pediatric Clinic, one of the bazillion clinics of Intermountain. We embarked actually before I started with Intermountain on a trend to having MHI, or mental health integration, in the clinics. So the mental health providers are entrenched right along with the PCP clinics. And it's been a wonderful opportunity because what we're finding is so much of what drives somebody to a PCP is actually mental health. And oftentimes a lot of my work is mental health included as a nurse case manager or care manager. This whole was adopted as the whole organization. And if you look at most of the Intermountain clinics, there will be either a licensed clinical social worker, a psychologist, and sometimes a psychiatrist. It's been a wonderful opportunity to work with them because as a nurse, I'm trained somewhat in psychiatry, or in psychology and mental health, but certainly not to the degree where the experts are. And so it's been a learning process, but it's also nice to be able to refer somebody right to the mental health provider right in your clinic. So that's kind of where we're embarking at right now.
So, Jen, what do you know about Intermountain's path to get to that point?
I think I had to do a little research on this, and let me see if I can see this with the darkness. They basically took a look at research and took a look at what were most of the clinics, experiencing with mental health, and as a result of that, really formed this branch, formed this organization that is driving that. Now it's very research-based. In fact, there should be an article being published pretty quickly by Brenda Reese-Brennan that will be talking about the outcomes of it. And so I think the concept in the entrenching has been a wonderful opportunity all the way around. So I think it's just exactly what we're starting to look at. The PCP clinics, we're saying this is what's driving it. The ED, all the ED visits, if you look at how many of those are mental health driven, it's amazing, just amazing. And so if you look at costs and how do we help people as a total person, you can't just treat the medical. You have to look at the medical.
So clearly Intermountain is the big win at the table here. So they've got the resources to potentially put a system-wide practice like that in place, which is fantastic. And you mentioned that your clinic actually has had a couple of little changes that you're experiencing right now. So you might have maybe taken a small step back or to the side, as it were.
To the side. Our psychiatrist on a sabbatical. And so, yeah, I know, it was such a bummer, you guys, because I was looking for working with a psychiatrist. I'd been working at another clinic. I'm thinking, oh, this is great. This is a fully staffed clinic, and then got the news that she was leaving the practice, and we have not had a replacement. So I think one of the barriers, and I'll just bring it right out there, is if somebody leaves, this person is not immediately replaced. And I can't encourage people enough, if you love this area, go into it. It is probably the biggest job security you could get right now, especially if you're double boarded with psychiatry, child psychiatry, and psychology. I think that it is, I think we're just at the tip of it, and it's only going to get bigger. So I think replacement is a hard thing.
It is, particularly for the psychiatry piece, yeah. And so what do you guys do when you have a child who seems to need a psychiatrist rather than perhaps the LD stuff?
We work with pretty closely with a variety of providers, but we look at, has to be insurance-based, so then you're looking at what insurance will this psychiatrist take and what is the weight. Also working with APRNs And that is tough, because I think that you look at the weight, by the time a child gets to you, usually they needed it 2, 3, 4 months ago. And so then you're trying very hard to get them into the system where they need to be and the level that they need. And that sometimes is a real struggle depending on insurance. Go ahead.
I make it a personal note just because, again, we always get the same thing as far as med management when they transition from our program. I like to call them unicorns because they're really hard to find, just like you said. But I do know of certain providers that are taking, be it adolescents or adults, APRN psychiatrists that are taking patients, and anyone can feel free to let me know because, again, we just want to help the community access resources when it comes to, you know, those specialty things. I'm on the road and in the valley everywhere, so I make it a point to find those people in particular because I know it's such a huge need. So.
Are you using DBH programs?
We use a variety of whatever is available. So
But that's kind of a different, you know, the portal thing. I wondered how that was working because I know it's pretty small and we can't do a ton, but with Dr. Christy Kleinschmidt. Okay.
No, I have not worked.
They how do you call that, triage with the pediatrician, and the pediatrician can consult with the psychiatrist. I think she said there's about 30,000 psychiatrists necessary in the country, and there's 7,000 child psychiatrists available.
I believe it.
So there's such
a
lack of, and that's why she created that program at the U.
And I think, you know, that's where I think providers need to know what is accessible. And I think that's where, if you have that possibility of entrenchment, that is the world's best, because then you immediately can walk down the hall. And that's good to know.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, Mindy, do you want to mention what's going on in Utah County?
Oh, if you need mental health services in Utah County, you're kind of in trouble. So we, psychiatrists especially, when we hear that a child needs to see a psychiatrist, that's a hard one. But we are fortunate we have a clinic right, not entrenched in our clinic, but next door. It's called the Bird Family Clinic. We have a psychologist and several psychology students and therapists, and they've been really good to work with us. It's kind of one of those, we can run down the hall, they can run down the hall. We can usually get the help that we need if it's an immediate kind of thing. One of our biggest struggles are Medicaid patients, and I know that's everybody's biggest struggle. In Utah County, they have to go to Wasatch Mental Health. I don't have a lot of experience with Valley Mental Health or whoever's up here in Salt Lake County, but we have, is anybody here from Wasatch Mental Health? We have a huge dissatisfaction rating with clients that we send to Wasatch Mental Health. I don't know if it's just the people that go there, I'm not exactly sure, but it just doesn't work very well. The communication isn't very good. I would love to get in contact with somebody that works there that we could improve our working relationship with them, because it's pretty much a disaster. So what has happened to our clinic because of that is we have had 2 providers and a mid-level actually go to some specialized psychiatry training. They constantly say we're not psychiatrists, but we're being forced to be psychiatrists. And so we probably do more psychiatry in our clinic than maybe other pediatric clinics do, because we don't have resources or places to send them. Especially when it's a Medicaid patient, if they don't sit with Wasatch Mental Health, there's nowhere else for them to go because of their insurance, so it's kind of really limited. We also have made connections with Dr. Swenson at Utah Valley, who's a pediatric psychiatrist. When he came about 1.5 years ago, his practice filled in about 3 to 4 months and then closed. So and then another one came and he's closed, and they're getting another one next spring, which probably will be the very same. But he's been good to at least collaborate with us and be there for a resource. So when you call a psychiatrist and they say, well, I think that you should start A, B, and C, a lot of our doctors are like, I'm not touching that medication. And so it makes it hard to get for a provider, and it's just a difficult situation where we are, and we've kind of had to take a hands-on approach to, okay, let's do it ourselves and make the best of it.
And so, Mindy, how did the Preferred Family Clinic, is that their name? How did that relationship happen? Was it just serendipity, or did they move in after your office was already established? And I mean, how did the
when we built our new building, which isn't new anymore, it's like 12 years old, but it still seems like it's new. They moved in next door to us. And so when we started medical homes, so actually doing our medical home project, whatever, 8 years ago, we met with them to kind of form that collaboration because of the need. And so we kind of met, drew some stuff up. And at one point we actually had one of their people seeing patients in our clinic, but we found that it was just easier where it was just across the hall to schedule it there and then not worry about insurance and all of that. So
there was a luck component to some degree, but then it was work.
Right.
Actually reaching out, meeting them, sitting down, talking about it.
Actually having meetings with them. What do we need? What do you need? How can we help each other? Like working, it didn't just happen. We like had to work at it.
And your providers there are motivated in this area.
Very.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so Wasatch folks.
So Wasatch Pediatrics is a group of 8 primary care pediatric offices throughout the valley and up in Park City. And Jenna can speak to the med-home model, and they adopted the med-home piece years ago. And then they recognized, hey, we don't have training in behavioral health. The studies say up to 70% of appointments are due to behavioral health or have behavioral health needs in the outpatient setting. And they found themselves having to be experts in something that they've never been trained in. And so they put together a behavioral health committee of docs, and as they went through that, they decided they wanted to bring on a full-time behavioral health person to organize the behavioral health for the whole organization, and that was me. I'm an LCSW. And so the one piece that they knew they wanted, they said, hey, we know we want a community facilitated referral model where we have relationships with community partners. It doesn't become a black hole referral to a behavioral health and you never hear back. You don't know what's going on. They wanted to blend it more. They said, so we know we want that in a resource database. And then we'd like you to figure out where we go from there. And so where we've been at is we've created a community resource database and have relationships with community providers. And I think that makes a big difference because, and I like how you're doing your list with this too, but knowing the personality of the provider and how it fits the family that you're referring is key. And how to communicate with that provider and what works best or who doesn't communicate and those kinds of things is really helpful to have more successful referrals, I think. So we've gone ahead and done that. And then researching all of the different models available. You hear a little bit of each up here too as far as co-location with another group, in-house workers, the community facilitated piece. And I think it's interesting even how different organizations do integration. Some, in our vision, is the hope that that behavioral health person can be accessible at the moment for warm handoffs. So they're doing some typical therapy, and then they're just on the fly. And even letting their people know that they're in traditional therapy with them, hey, I might be pulled out. And so it's going to look a little different than if you're out of private practice having therapy. But trying to have that full integration piece and recognizing the importance of a warm handoff or a brief intervention of, hey, 15 minutes with this person to talk about some skills or normalizing or connecting to another resource that might be needed could save 3 hours of appointments down the line and headache for this family of I've seen this person and that person and this person told me to come back and do this. And so really streamlining that. So our goal had been to increase the good care to kids and increase their quality of life, reducing the burden on the docs and the staff, and then the financial benefits of it all too. So we aren't treating stomach aches for appointments when they could get some behavioral health on how to relax and reduce stress.
And then at South Point, we have a child psychologist a nurse practitioner, and then 2 externs who practice and provide like counseling and therapy within our practice. And so you have to be a Wasatch patient, which is like the downfall, well, not the downfall for us, but like for the community. So you would have to transfer your primary care to Wasatch Pediatrics. But Dr. Rich sees patients for like medication management, and then he does provide some like counseling and help there. But what's really nice is any time there's a referral, so a patient comes in, they have some like mental health issues, they can be referred right in-house to a location they're already familiar with. The doctor can walk them right down to like our mental health like little hallway. Sorry. And then there's also the counseling portion, so the externs, and they switch out usually every year, but we do have a female and a male. And like I saw this on Friday, one of the providers actually pulled the female extern and said, hey, can you just come meet this patient to see if you guys could like have a 5-minute interview, see if you click, so that she can start, you know, counseling here. They had a 5-minute interview, she clicked, like they scheduled an appointment, you know, and therapy started like that. So it's been really nice to have that integration, and then being able to like consult, see the notes that are in our like online system. Like, so you saw Dr. Ridge, you know, like 2 months ago for your medication, you know, you're here for your well visit, how are things going? Like, they're able to like see all of those notes and pull them up. So that's been really nice and helpful.
Janet, how does that work for you guys with your Medicaid population in your practice?
So they do, so because they bill underneath the doctors, they're able to see Medicaid patients. If they can't get in a timely manner, then we have to push them out to, usually it's Valley. But yeah, because the nurse practitioner and Dr. Ridge bill underneath like our physicians in our office, like they're able to see Medicaid. They don't have the cap that Medicaid usually puts on.
Bill off the physical code or mental health code?
Mental health code.
So like not the 9921324, because that's you're feeling like it.
I don't know. I'm not code savvy.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Okay.
I believe the externs are billing cash, and then they bill insurance if possible, or if they determine that, because they would have to be under Optum training and everything to bill behavioral health.
I don't know. You're probably
I think
right.
Probably
Dr. Ridge and I know
for that,
Helen
for the med management, counseling with med management, that they're billing medical.
Under the, yeah, I'm not sure how the externs work.
But for non-med management, for behavioral health, that counseling sort of piece, that would come under the Optum carve-out. Is that what you're saying?
If it was traditional therapy.
Traditional therapy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of like what Nate, Helen, Dr. Ridge, and the APRN is they'll do a medical code, med management, and then Nate often does with 50% or more counseling. And that's how he's
Under the physician.
Yes.
Yeah,
like
so he's a psychiatrist who's also or a psychologist who's also a PA.
Yeah.
So he's billing PA.
Wonderful accommodation.
You don't find that all the time.
No.
You need to get a school program.
Yeah.
Yeah, while you're getting your.
I was working with a family and found out that we see some patients or families in the Bernal area.
Yeah.
And they have Northeastern counseling there. One of the families was in need of a child psychiatrist that they don't have there at Northeastern counseling, but I just found out that they are starting to telecommunicate to uni. So I don't know if like other places will start to do that too. Great.
So intermountain also is, I think your patients are intermountain employees. They should use the employee assistance program for their staff.
So Rachel's talking about if you happen to be, working with a family who has an Intermountain employee, and they're a huge employer, so it could be in any kind of role there, that Intermountain has an employee assistance program, and that's how they should be referred, right? And their spouses. Yeah. Yeah. And University of Utah has something like that as well.
Yeah, I love it. We tap into that a lot with care management because if there's a cost issue, gosh, usually that's free. Yeah. And what a way to start. I mean, and maybe you can have the visits that are required just to do exactly what you're saying, get some tools and what needs to happen. So yeah.
Right. And I think the wait time is much reduced.
Yeah.
And it's around
that interim time where if you need to see someone long-term later, you can have that.
Right. Yeah, and I think in some cases you need to see someone within the EAP system before they'll allow you to refer out. Yeah. So quick, because the time just flew today. These are kind of the barriers and challenges that we heard kind of come up repeatedly in the responses we got from you guys. I'm sure these aren't surprises to anyone. So finding behavioral health providers that take the patient's insurance or are in that general area so they can drive there or get there, or that do what the patient needs. In many cases, it's that medication management. So that's, just even, Jan was saying, go get triple board certified as possibly can.
There should be funding to help providers do that. Because talk about a shortage area.
Well, I'll tell you really quickly that there's a group who surveys medical professions to try and determine why did you go into this, why are you staying, or why are you leaving, and they have not done some of the more mental health related professions. Now, psychiatry falls under the doctors for them, which is kind of a shame. They should, I think, do a separate kind of a outreach to them, but they did start with some of the other DOPL license codes, and so I think we might start to see a push in that direction because Utah and like other states, they want to identify where those problems are and then hopefully put programs and subsidies and incentives in place at some point.
I believe they passed legislation last year to give kind of debt support to psychiatrists.
Oh. And then, of course, long wait times. We've all heard about those. And then I heard this a number of times, and it's that exchange of information. It's that releases of information are often required by both provider types, and that's just hard, right? And then actually, even once the release of information is in place, getting those behavioral providers to come back to give you that important information to help with the the outcomes of the patient from the primary care side, and then also understanding what really can and can't, because it's a gray area. And someone actually mentioned recent new HIPAA changes that have made it even more onerous. And I didn't get more details on that, but I'll look into that because we want less of those, not more of those for sure. But I'll tell you what I heard, and you can tell me if you heard something else in addition. But what I heard from you guys is that you got to take the time to get to know the providers. You've got to establish the relationship and then continue to establish the relationship. And that allows you to help pair the patient and their family to the right type. It allows that communication loop to take place. It helps smooth out the insurance issues. Hopefully, if something changes on the behavioral health provider insurance panel, they'll let you know, and that can get mitigated in advance. So it's creating that relationship, and that takes time, and it takes energy. But that sounds, does that sound right? That that's what we've got to do, right?
No, I've literally had like stupid bronchitis for like 3 weeks. So. Oh, dear. In the summer, I know.
We'll be good all winter.
So, do you guys have any other questions for our panel? We're nearly at 10 o'clock. I thought this was really useful. I hope that others found this useful as well. And I'm sure they'd be happy. Not sure, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. I bet they'd be happy to answer your questions like by email or however after the fact. easy thing, and we're going to continue to work on this topic for sure in this group and on the national portal. So I wanted to mention that we do have a fall learning session in the planning stages. It's going to happen. We know at this point that it's going to be on October 12th, and so that's in addition to our regular October meeting. It is a Wednesday. I'm really sorry for those of you who said no Wednesdays, but the majority of those who responded said Wednesday was a good day. And then we are doing it at the University of Utah. Again, people are probably going, I don't want to go to the University of Utah, but it's fall break week. No students, no. So I think that traffic won't be as difficult, and we'll try and time it so that we don't have you coming right at the height of rush hour. So that's what we know so far, and the topic that sort of rose to the top there is just, you know, improving outcomes of pediatric care coordination. So figuring out how to fund it, how family partners can participate, how to implement it, that sort of thing is what we'll be working on. So more information coming. Save the date. That would be great. And then our next meeting is September 21st, here again. And again, we'll be continuing kind of following up on some of the things that we talked about today. We will have Valley. We're excited to have Valley come in, and we'll do our very darndest to make sure we get some of the folks who do the family resource facilitation project in here as well. And we had one other that we're working on. Oh, yeah, the Medicaid carve-out. We want to make sure we have information on that as well. So that's what we're working on. Thanks, everyone. Get more food on your way out. Oh, parking validations, yeah.
Just getting that right now.
You just get your parking validations right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, how come you, oh, okay, well, that's the next question. It's like,